Well, the Milwaukee Brewers did not do anything really major down at the baseball winter meetings. Did anybody really, though? I know there's some tendency to panic when those things end and, we don't get what we want. We'll talk about that coming up next here on Locked On Brewers.
You are Locked On Brewers, your daily Milwaukee Brewers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yeah, I think the tendency is when these baseball winter meetings happen, that we expect the Brewers just to fix a couple of different holes on their team and everything is going to be right. Well, maybe that was like that, in the older days. They go to baseball winter meetings and, man, it seemed like there was moves made left and right. Now it just seems like it's a lot of groundwork. Yeah, a couple of teams made some moves. Of course, the Yankees spent some money. The Mets spent some money. The Dodgers right before it spent some money. The Giants right before the baseball winter meeting spent on Adames. And the Brewers, well, they picked up a couple of pitchers. One in the Rule 5 draft. We'll talk about all that coming up next here and where the Brewers stand as of right now. Good to have you along. Chuck Freeman, Locked On Brewers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every day. Thank you very much. Also, find me on Twitter. Go to my Twitter account, Chuck Freeman, and you will find right there, if you're watching me on YouTube, Chuck Freeman, F-R-E-I-M-U-N-T. Any questions you ever have about the Milwaukee Brewers, you want to DM me privately, just do that, man. I read all your comments. All your, sometimes you guys give me some great ideas as well. You say, well, can you talk about this or whatever? Yeah, love to always hear from you here on Locked On Brewers. I hate when people tell me, this isn't any relation to that, calm down. Like I'll say something, calm down. And I'm not going to tell you Brewer fans out there ever to calm down, unless there's something really irrational out there. But I would say for those of you getting excited about the Brewers' lack of movement down at spring training or down at the baseball winter meetings, don't worry. There's plenty of time left between now and spring training. As we know, moves get made during spring training, weeks before spring training, and so on. So, yeah, I'll take the Brewers' word for it that they were active down there. They were busy on the phone lines, busy on the cell, even though it appears not a lot got done. So I saw some of your comments on Twitter on my last episode yesterday, and it said, geez, are the Brewers going to do anything? Well, I get it. We want something done, and I totally get it. And I'm just worried about third base, but we're all going to take it easy and see how this happens, see what materializes on this. Now, let's start with Crochet. We made a big deal, as we always do, when we hear that Milwaukee Brewers or any of our sports teams, in this case, the Milwaukee Brewers, are in the market, are in the running for a player. The Brewers are in the running for this guy. They're one of 3 or 4 or 5 teams. And of course, what ultimately happens? You get that message from a buddy, or you get a tweet, or you see a tweet, or you get a message on your phone. Oh, the Brewers lost said player, in this case, to the Boston Red Sox. Garrett Crochet goes to the White Sox for a couple of top 100 prospects. And the question is here, the Brewers have 3 top 100 prospects. Should they outbid the Red Sox for Crochet? Could the Brewers have sent all 3 of their prospects in the top 100 for Crochet? I would say that would be just plain out stupid. Although you never know how prospects are going to turn out. You never know. I have no problems trading prospects, but were the Brewers really serious about giving Crochet a long-term deal that he was looking for? Were they, or did they back out, thinking he was just going to come here for a couple of years and then fly away? We'll never know. But the Brewers, according to all the sources out there, the reputable ones, were in the market for Crochet. So Boston gave up 2 prospects that the White Sox loved. The Brewers had some more assets. The Brewers could have done this and had Crochet. But, is it worth giving up Jacob Misiorowski in that deal? We all like to think he's the real deal, but I'm sure that's what Boston was thinking. They wanted Misiorowski, I would have guessed. And maybe a couple of others guys as well. But 3 prospects to get Crochet outbidding Boston? I don't know. Maybe it took 3, or maybe it took 2 better than what Boston gave up. But Crochet, in any case, is not going to become a member of the Milwaukee Brewers. After we talked about that happening, I kind of figured this was going to end up this way, as it always does with the Milwaukee Brewers. Again, they're in the market for somebody, and ultimately, the guy goes elsewhere. And shocking, he goes to the Boston Red Sox. But the Brewers did pick up a couple of pitchers. Grant Wolfram, we'll start with him. Signed a minor league contract with the Brewers. 6'8", 240. Let's start with there. 6'8", 240. Throws a slider. Pretty mean slider, it sounds. Left-hander. Bullpen arm, it sounds like. Comparable to Jared Caney. Sounds like the Brewer brass compares him to Jared Caney right now. He is added to the 40-man roster, which is currently at 39. So Wolfram gets added, and we'll see if he makes the team, where he's headed. Again, minor league deal for Grant Wolfram. Kind of a Brewer-type move. Connor Thomas, Rule 5 pick, which means, as you know, the Brewers have to keep him on the roster all year long, or they got to offer him back. So ground ball pitcher, 56 appearances, a few saves out of the bullpen for the Cardinals, a former third-round pick in 2019 in the amateur draft, Connor Thomas. So they add Thomas and Wolfram to the 30-man, and Thomas, a guy who the Brewers are talking about, can either start or come out of the bullpen. All remains to be seen for Grant Wolfram and Connor Thomas. Another lefty, though, with Wolfram out of the bullpen, adds to the lefty, if he does make the team, that they've lost with Hoby Milner. And we'll see how that trade-out works. Devin Williams was untraded at the baseball winter meetings, but I'm sure the groundwork was probably laid out. The Yankees remain the top name we're seeing out there and hearing out there in pursuit of Devin Williams. So that continues to happen. Third base continues to be a big hole. A little bit later on in the podcast, we'll talk about some of the free agents that are still available in the market to go to third base should the Brewers not get themselves a third baseman. I still think the Phillies are involved with Devin Williams. Even though they made a signing the other day for their bullpen, I still think Devin Williams is very much an option for the Philadelphia Phillies. When we come back, where do the Brewers stand? We'll go through the positions. We'll go through the starters. We'll go through the bullpen on where the Brewers stand at this point. Where will they stand heading into the holiday? At least, unless the move doesn't be made before the holiday. The Brewers, of course, one holiday move I did remember them making in the past on Christmas Eve in 2006. They signed Jeff Suppan. Some of us loved it. Some of us hated it. I hated it at the time. Those of you who listen to me on Sports Talk in Wisconsin know I hated it at the time, and it turned out I was right on that. Chuck Freeman, Locked On Brewers, part of Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every day. Game Time is the way to go for all your tickets. I love going to sporting events, of course, concerts, looking for something to go to this weekend. Last weekend, went to a concert, bought my tickets on Game Time, 11th row. Those prices were dropping all weekend long. Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Finally, Saturday came, and I snapped them up before somebody else did. And you can too. All in pricing on Game Time. Toggling that feature will allow you to shows all the totals up front. No surprise fees at checkout. So, you're going right along there and fees continue to mount up. That's not going to happen when you go to Game Time. You get a panoramic view, really colorful, just great presentation that Game Time has. Lowest price guaranteed, or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. And they got just amazing, flexible customer service policy for the best in the ticket industry, and where your purchase is covered. But you got to do this. You want to buy your tickets. You want to take advantage of this upcoming deal. You got to download the Game Time app, create an account, use the promo code LOCKEDONMLB, $20 off your purchase. Buy anything you want on there. Bucks tickets, college basketball, maybe this weekend, whatever you want. And out of state, all the tickets, any concert. See, Def Leppard's coming to Summerfest this summer. Well, I'm sure there's going to be tickets on there too, as well on Game Time. All the good seats. Terms apply again. Create an account, redeem the code Locked On MLB for $20 off your first purchase. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It is game time. Chuck Freeman here on Locked On Brewers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every day. Great to have you along here on a very cold stretch we're going through here in the state of Wisconsin. Nothing like talking Brewers baseball. Was on the Bill Michaels show the other day, talking hot stove league with him. Third base remains a hole with the Milwaukee Brewers. It does. One name I haven't brought up at third base yet, and when I said I didn't want any in-house players moving, how about Sal Frelick? I haven't mentioned him. But Sal Frelick, who took some turns at third base last year at spring training, for all intents and purposes, sounded pretty good over there. Now, the Brewers do have a glut of outfielders, and if one of these don't get traded, we'll get to the outfield situation here in a little bit. How about moving Sal Frelick to third base? If the roster stood like it does right now, and they don't go out and get themselves anybody I'm going to mention off the free agent market, or they make a trade for a third baseman, and let's say that they don't make that deal with the Phillies involving Alec Bohm, Sal Frelick is my next option for third base. I'd move him over to third base. Now, he's not going to be my power hitting third baseman that I wanted, but he's athletic enough where I think he can get the job done over at third base. I'd like more home runs than 3 homers over my third baseman over there. But that is my last resort right there. Sal Frelick at third base. I'm hoping they try him again, even in a backup role over at third base. But, man, I'm so curious to see what they do. I don't know if that's their plan, to stand pat there unless a third baseman falls in their pocket. But Sal Frelick right now, as of right now, over the Ollie Dunns and all those other guys, he is my best option to play third base, even though he's very, very raw over there. Shortstop, well, it's going to be Ortiz. I know some of you still ask about, is Turang moving there? They're not moving Turang to short and Ortiz to second. I think the worst possible scenario is they don't get a third baseman, or the best case scenario, I should say. Well, moving Frelick over to third isn't the worst case, but I'm saying if they don't get anybody else better than him, I think he's your third baseman. My gut feeling. Ortiz moves to short regardless. Turang plays second base. So I think you have Ortiz and Turang, and you let them be your double play combination going forward. Any problem with that? I don't. I want Ortiz and Turang as my double play combination. Turang, he carved a niche with me at second base over the last couple of years defensively. Gold Glover. You're never moving him out of second base, I don't think. And Ortiz. Yeah, with Turang playing second, I think he's only going to get better offensively. We saw an upgrade, I thought, this past year with him. Him and Ortiz. That's my double play combination going forward. First base. As we stand right now, Rhys Hoskins, you got to play him every day. He's your everyday first baseman. And you might consider a backup left-hander. If you do, it's going to be a left-handed first baseman. Doesn't sound like Goldschmidt is going to be in the plans. I threw out a couple episodes ago about this rotating way with Yelich playing some DH. And obviously, Yelich doesn't want to play first base, but in a way where you would kind of massage it where you'd have Hoskins and Goldschmidt. I think that was just kind of me throwing something out there. I don't think that's not realistically is going to happen. That was just a Freeman thought right there. You know, some of my moves aren't so bad that I wish the Brewers would consider, but nobody's consulted me on that one. But Hoskins, Rhys is the everyday first baseman. And when I say everyday first baseman, I don't want him getting pinch hit for as a right-handed pitcher out there, like we saw, even though it worked out with Bowers in the postseason. Rhys Hoskins is my everyday first baseman. Going forward, I want that guy to have 500 at-bats. And when he's not playing first, I want him to DH. Hoskins, I want in the everyday lineup. Guys making $18 million. I don't want any platooning out of this guy. Let's get him in there every day, either at first base or DH. And hit the 30, 35 home runs because they're going to need some home runs. They're going to need more to the 26 home runs. They're going to need more from Hoskins than they got last year because of the loss of Willy Adames. Going to need that. Hoskins, every day. You want to get yourself a backup left-handed first baseman for when Hoskins is going to DH or sparing him at first base. I'm okay with that. Contreras, obviously, he's my everyday catcher. Sounds like the Brewers are in the market for a backup catcher in addition to Haas, who's already signed. The Brewers did this last year. Wouldn't be surprising to me if they got somebody better than Haas at catcher, at least defensively better than Haas. So Contreras, catcher, he's going to DH, and he's going to be in the everyday lineup. So why not have yourself a strong catcher? Tried Gary Sanchez. I thought Gary would work. I mean, he wasn't bad, but I thought he'd be a little better than he was last year. Did go through a little injury, but we'll see what the Brewers are. I know some of you were surprised and messaged me about, boy, you hear that the Brewers are in the market for a backup catcher at the winter meetings. Now, that didn't surprise me. I've said this before. Not surprising. If they can get one, they can get one. They'll get one to be better than Haas like they did last year. Right behind Contreras. They're paying, $1.2 million for Haas. Outfield. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Yelich, Perkins, Mitchell, Frelick, and Chourio. I've said Frelick to third base, unless you trade. I mean, does Frelick get dealt in the offseason? Does Mitchell? I know some of you might think I'm crazy about the Frelick thing, but who knows? Who knows what direction the Brewers will go? The Brewers have known to trade outfielders who've been productive. Again, the whole thing with trading him and what's attractive to the Brewers with Frelick is that he is, he's got some years under arbitration under his belt ahead. And same with Mitchell. So you got Yelich, Perkins, Mitchell, Frelick, Chourio. I've always said Perkins is not an everyday player. And yeah, early in the season last year was great, but Perkins defensively, man, love him center field. Defensive replacement, you got it. Major league level, of course. But my outfield, I want Yelich, I want Chourio, Frelick, and Mitchell. And of course, Yelly's not going to be playing every day, coming back from the back. And someone, I've asked about the back, had the surgery. Sounds like he's going to be okay to swing the bat. Hasn't done so yet in the offseason, but he's going to be okay to swing the bat when spring training rolls around. But you got 4 solid bats there: Yelich, Mitchell, Frelick, and Chourio, I think, with Perkins the weak bat of the 5, but a terrific glove. And you could say maybe the second best glove behind Frelick in the outfield. All right, let's get to that pitching staff. We'll do that, and we'll wish a former Brewer. We'll wish him a happy birthday. Coming up next, Chuck Freeman here on Locked On Brewers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every day. FanDuel is America's #1 sports book for a number of different reasons. Thursday Night Football coming up. Hey, you get a hunch in the middle of the game. You check out those latest stats, view the live play-by-play, so much more on the same page where you place your bets at FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. New customers get $5. Place that $5 bet. You'll get a $150 bonus, a $150 bonus deposited in your account when you win that $5 bet. They give you everything you need for the live betting on the NFL. I told you I like betting the Chiefs on live betting on FanDuel, but whatever you like, FanDuel, whatever sport you want, it's all there. But you got to visit FanDuel today, FanDuel.com today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets when you win your first $5 bet. It's that simple. FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and take advantage of their live plays. They got all the stats and all the play-by-play right there. It's going to be ahead of what you see on TV. TV might be 30, 40, 60 seconds behind, but not on FanDuel. They'll have it all actively right there to make your play so you can see where the ball is and everything going on a current drive. Visit FanDuel today. Take advantage of the bonus bets of $150 when you win your first $5 bet. Never waste a hunch. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Chuck Freeman here on Locked On Brewers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every day. Get us on Google, Spotify, Apple, wherever you download your podcast, we are there. We're on a bunch of different platforms out there. We're the number one Brewer podcast because of you. Great Milwaukee Brewers fans who've made us the number one podcast. Over 4,000 subs, started doing this, 4,000 subs on YouTube. And please go to YouTube. If you download the podcast on the audio platforms, please go to YouTube, search Locked On Brewers, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell. I took over this podcast just under 2 years ago when it was well under 1,000 subscribers, and now we're up to 4,000. And that's because of you great Brewer fans. But please, and then follow me on Twitter, Chuck Freeman, Freimund. We'll go lightly on the pitching staff right now because we've talked about that before at nauseum. You got 4 starters right now. You got 6 starters. I see right now with the Brewers: Peralta, Myers, Savale, Woodruff, DL Hall, and Ashby. You have 6 guys I'm looking at right now. I'll say that list again: Peralta, Myers, Savale, Woody, DL Hall, and Ashby. Those are 6 candidates, probably vying for 5 spots. Savale, you hear, is still on the trade market. That could happen. Woodruff, of course, coming off the injury. Peralta, Myers. I would say this. On opening day, Peralta, Myers, and DL Hall and Ashby, I would say for sure those guys will be in the rotation on opening day. Barring injury, Peralta, Myers, DL Hall, and Ashby, with Woodruff. And if Savale's on this team, Woodruff, if he's throwing well and coming bouncing back, he's going to be that next starter. And he won't be the number 5 starter. Obviously, he'll be a little higher up on the chain than that. But I think Savale's still going to get traded. Bullpen. For now, Devin Williams is your closer. McGill is the closer in waiting right there. Payamps, Koenig, Uribe, Hudson, Peguero, Mears, and Bukauskas. I like the bullpen again. I love what they have in that bullpen. I want to see Peguero have a better year. Payamps bounce back better than he had last year. The team loves Mears, and McGill would be my closer. With or without Williams, that is still a strong bullpen for the Milwaukee Brewers. Free agents. I want to touch on this real quickly. Third basemen who are still out there: Moncada, Urshela, old friend Brian Anderson, not the Brewers broadcaster, but Brian Anderson, who was here a couple of years ago, burst onto the scene and then was barely heard from down the stretch and wasn't even on the postseason roster. Brian Anderson. Chase Peterson at 35 years old. Do you have a candidate for the Brewers at third base? Free agent, J.D. Davis. 5 of the top names out there. I don't like any of them. Don't really like any. I would assume just put Sal Frelick over at third base than any of those guys: Moncada, Urshela, Anderson, Peterson, and Davis. Justin Verlander. Sounds like Justin Verlander at 42, it would cost you 1 year, $13 million. A little cheaper than I thought for that rotation. God, can we go do better than that, though? I mean, not better than that price, but Justin Verlander, do we got to go down that road with a 40? I just want to sign Justin Verlander, and then by May, we're here talking about him going to the IL and then going up to Appleton and making some rehab starts. That's my big thing about signing a 42-year-old pitcher, even at $13 million. I get his history and all that. I get his history. And by the way, the guy the Brewers just signed, Grant Wolfram, grew up in Michigan, was a big Justin Verlander day when Verlander played with the Tigers. So I still wouldn't. 1 year, $13 million would still not kick the tires on that. Gorman Thomas. So we send it off here. Gorman Thomas, happy 74th birthday. The guys that I grew up watching and cheering for as a kid and covered a little bit are now in their mid-70s. Gorman at 74. Gorman Thomas was at my kid's lacrosse game 2 years ago. He was watching, I believe, his nephew, and my kid was playing against his kid's team out in Kettle Moraine area. Gorman at 74 years old. Gorman, man, I would say Gorman, you could make an argument for having his jersey retired. Gorman, without question, the most popular brewer of all time? Could he? I'm not saying the best brewer of all time. Won a home run championship, 45 home runs in 1979. Or was it 1980? It was one of those years. But could he be the most popular brewer of all time? Well, let me know your comments on that. Not the best, the most popular brewer of all time. Dave Parker, who we talked about went into the Hall of Fame. Should he go on the Wall of Fame now? Because the Brewers have this habit of putting ex-brewers who are even here with a cup of coffee, putting them on the Wall of Fame. Parker, 1-year All-Star. Does he go on the Brewers Wall of Fame in the future? We'll see. That's going to do it. Chuck, the Brewers did not send any congratulations email out or anything on Twitter that I saw of Dave Parker. So maybe they don't even remember. It was so long ago. It was 34 years ago. It's going to do it for me. Locked On Brewers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every day. Remember, we're always your first source for Brewers talk. We'll update any news that happens 24/7. Or we'll go live or whatever. We'll do shorts. We'll be back here with a podcast 7 days a week. Whenever there's Brewers news happening, you get it first here. News and commentary. We'll be talking about how it affects the team on any move right here on Locked On Brewers. Your second listen to, after you make Locked On Brewers your first listen to, make Locked On MLB your second listen to. My guy Sully's got all the hot stove league talk. Chuck Freeman, Locked On Brewers, part of Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every day. Have yourself a great day, everybody.